All right, welcome community newspaper family into my show, Sebi's Spotlight here. My name is Sebastian Alvarez. We're going to be highlighting some of South Florida's best up-and-coming businesses. We're going to be talking to the people that run them and operate them and getting an idea of just kind of how these businesses are operating, what it's like in the modern landscape, and what maybe some of you guys who are out there can take from them in terms of advice, whether it be in life or business, doesn't matter. Today, my guest is a very special guest. He's a good friend of mine, the very funny Raul Hernandez.
Hi.
There he is.
How's it going, guys? Is everything going okay? How are we doing today? Are we doing okay?
It's a tiny microphone.
It's a tiny microphone. Come in closer. Do I have to come in closer because it's a tiny mic? Do I have to cover? I don't know what to do with my hands.
Well, clearly Raul isn't media trained. No, I'm kidding.
Not.
He's not. No, but my friend right here, he does run Dade County Comedy. As you can see, he is the owner and operator of one of my favorite productions of comedy that happens down here in South Florida. He's a comedian himself as well. He's very funny. So we're going to kind of get into all of that right now in terms of how did you get started, first of all, in comedy? Because you've been doing it for how long now?
It's going to be 4 years this year.
Yeah.
So that's a great question. So before 2017, I used to do 8 podcasts a week.
Jesus. Like you were on the podcast?
I was on podcasts. So I was on various podcasts. I was under, I guess, tutelage or the under the umbrella of another comedian, actually Miami comedian by the name of Neri Signs.
I know Neri. He's dope.
Yeah, Neri's great. Shout out Neri. Please go follow him.
Funny guy.
So me and Neri, we did a bunch of podcasts. We had like a little podcast network that we were all part of. At one point, I was doing a podcast a week. That included like a wrestling podcast, a general Miami podcast, a geek podcast. It was a bunch of them. And after that, like I had some life events and I fell out of that. I always was a big fan of comedy. When younger kids, when they would watch like TRL or any MTV shows or like what do you call it, reality television, I was watching specials. I would be on Comedy Central every night watching like Premium Blend, Comedy Central Presents, seeing like just comedians start off and do their first 30 minutes. And I got really enthralled with it, man. I loved it, fell in love with the idea of being a comedian. My parents knew I wanted to be a comedian when I was younger, and they were like, hey, let's get a business degree first or something. Push it that way. All right. And somehow, such is life, man. You find a way back into like what you really love. So 2020 happened, and there was a famous report by the WHO during the time of the, I don't know if we were allowed to, are we allowed to?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. Yeah.
During the time of the pandemic, there was a famous report by WHO that at one point stated that COVID and the pandemic, that there was a potential for it to be a 40% fatality rate. So half the world was going to get vaporized at one point. That's what people thought. And at that moment, I was like, I'm not going to go out not doing the things I really want to do in my life. So ironically, number one with like a bullet was start doing open mics and start trying to do comedy, take my hand to comedy. I went to my first comedy show. It was in Wynwood, in a kava bar that doesn't even exist anymore.
Which most of the kava bars in Wynwood don't exist after like a month.
Yeah.
So it's surprising that a kava bar isn't a profitable business nowadays. That's wild. That's wild.
Got some shows at kava bars. It's okay. I did 3. I remember I went up on stage. I did 3 minutes. I freaked out because I burnt through all this material I thought I've worked on like for weeks.
Right.
Burnt through it in 3 minutes, and I literally was holding the mic. I was like, okay, you can get me now. Come save me. Just the host running up.
Yeah.
And I ran out of there sweating profusely. But then you get hooked. You get hooked automatically, and it's grown from there, of course.
Yeah. So that's 4 years ago. And then when was it that you really felt that you wanted to start taking this seriously and taking it to the level where you actually wanted to, start Dade County Comedy and possibly start a business?
So there was a few things that happened. We finally, pandemic went away. Miami started allowing live entertainment more often in venues. There's a famous venue in Miami in Coconut Grove. That's like, it used to be like the hub for open micers, for comedians and up and comers to go and work on their material. What happened was, there's consistent, you form a familial bond. You have like your certain open micers or certain comedians that are starting out. And what happened at this location, at this venue, is there was a proliferation of what I would call bumping. So bumping, we don't experience it that much no more because there's so many, and thank God that there's so many shows now in Miami that there's really no need to bump anymore.
Right.
But because there was such a finite amount of space in Miami, because there was only really 1 or 2 shows going on at that time a week, you get consistent bumping. So what happens with bumping? Bumping, for those who do know, is when a more experienced or more established comedian jumps ahead of the rest of the list of an open mic or of a show. This is not a negative practice. I don't want to make it sound negative at all. But what happens is, especially when you had such a focal concentration of comedians in one spot, and you have mics that went like 30 people deep, this is what would happen. And I saw this happen. People that were legitimately funny, that just needed the stage time, just needed the chance to flourish, just started dropping out, started leaving. And it got really frustrating for me. One night, we show up to this venue. You show up at 8 p.m. on the dot to put your name on this list. And during one show, I remember this like yesterday, 3 people of knowledgeable, well-known comedians got out of an Uber and immediately was like, okay, that's 3 people who are going to jump ahead of us. 2 other comedians come just walking in of also like kind of well-known. Okay, they're also going to jump ahead of us. Another comedian comes in and slides to the back of this venue and was like, she's going to also go ahead of us. So I, for example, I put my name on that mic list at 8 p.m. I did not touch that stage until like 1:30.
Jesus Christ, yeah.
So that was the ultimate breaking point of frustration for me. So I wasn't a good, I still don't think I'm a great comedian right now. Or a good comedian. I'm a comedian.
I'm a comedian.
I'm a comedian. I got so frustrated, I pulled our partner, my partner Tarno aside, Alex Tarno. Follow him, please. Pulled him aside and I was like, bro, we got to do something. We got to make a change. We got to start. I felt like Tupac. We got to start making some changes.
Yeah.
We got to change the way we eat. Because I haven't. Clearly. So after that night, I created an email format. And I sent this email and hard letters to over 200 restaurants, bars, hookah bars, all across Miami. The first one to respond was literally the bar right before you hit the Keys. So literally the most southern point of Miami.
Exit 1, correct?
Exit 1, which is now Prison Palace Exit 1.
Great show.
It's a great show. It's an outdoor venue, but I really enjoy that show, and it's kind of like our hidden gem show.
If they got the pineapple beer on draft, get it.
They do.
Tastes like hoopina. It's like an alcoholic hoopina. It's crazy.
It's awesome, and they have great food trucks there too. Check it out.
Really good spot.
You know, I know some people have like this sentiment about Florida City. Florida City's entirely has changed.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say something. So before we get into Dade County comedy and the establishment of it, I just want kind of to get people up to speed on what it is and kind of what you do for comics, because so for a lot of people that don't know, these open mics that happen at these venues, they don't just occur. Like, we don't just, all these comics don't just show up and we're like, we're taking the stage. Like, give us the mic and the lights. It's set up ahead of time. We have to do that. And in Miami especially, we're just building this scene now. It's a starting, developing, growing scene. Places like New York, LA, those kind of spots, they've had people like Richard Pryor and crazy huge names that have been there since the 60s and the 70s, and those have established places. Down here in Miami, we need guys like Raul to set up his company, Dade County Comedy, which, if you want to, you can explain kind of just in general what you do and how you interact with these different venues.
Yeah. So going on your point, there's, in my belief, there are 4 major metropolitan cities in the United States: New York, LA, Chicago, Miami. The one that has the greatest potential to grow its comedy scene, that's not already a vibrant comedy scene, is Miami. And I always wonder, like, why was that? Why has that not happened yet? There's clearly talent here.
And there's people.
There's people. I mean, Florida is the fastest growing state in the nation right now. And I was just wondering why that hadn't occurred. So one of the reasons is that we just didn't have the amount of venues available. So one of the first things I was doing was literally working, grinding. I know I sound like a cliche right now, but
no, but it's true.
Trying to find venues, trying to find people and market ourselves. Like, hey, comedy is an actual form of live entertainment, and it's a good form of live entertainment. We can bring people out, and there's audience for it. And there's clearly an audience for it. We started off again with that one room in Exit 1, and we just started climbing north. And now I have rooms in Fort Lauderdale and Hollandale Beach. I should change my name already now because I'm not.
You're not in Dade County only.
We've also worked with many different municipalities, such as Town of Sunrise, Town of Cutler Bay, Coconut Grove, which is exciting. It's showing that comedy not only has a place here in Miami, but that the city itself is starting to accept it and into the municipality, which is a huge, big deal. And we're starting to see the fruits of that labor. We're starting to see, like, I don't mean name drop it, but like Marcelo. Seeing Marcelo, I did shows Marcelo, and seeing him make it to SNL was such a big moment for me as a Miami comedian, because that's like, hey, we got a guy in the Mecca, not only the Mecca, but like the main show, the main thing you want your guy to be in.
Yeah,
that's awesome. You know, we have Carlos Hernandez also. He's striving. Brittany's on the radio now. Yeah, which is bananas. All these things, and I'm just I'm sorry, I'm like, let me pick up all the names I'm dropping. Like, it's amazing seeing the growth and seeing the growth of other comedians like yourself, Adrian, like a bunch of the other guys that we're working with. It gives me so much happiness and joy. Like, yes, I run a company, and yes, we do take in revenue, but the biggest revenue, the biggest joy in my heart is seeing you guys make it and you guys exceed. I've gone kind of given up on that dream of making it. My goal is really to create the foundation for others.
Yeah, I feel you. And I'll be honest with you, in terms of people that are doing it in Miami, you're one of the ones that are doing it right. I know a lot of people that also create similar concepts to you and try and do this, and it's not easy. You know what I mean? Finding the right venues, curating the right people to come to those venues, like it's a massive, massive undertaking, because unlike having a musician, or unlike having a singer come and perform at your venue as live entertainment, like you were saying, comedy is so different because it can be polarizing at times. You need to know what guys you can put in certain rooms. What does the owner of that club want? Like, all those little things are factors that if you don't do it correctly, it messes up the show, and you consistently do it right, and it makes the shows run really smoothly, and they're a good time. They're fun. You know what I mean? Like you were saying, for us as young comics, I feel like we need that environment to flourish. Like, if we're going to have a good time, it's not just us that needs to do well. We want to see everybody else that's on the stage do well, so that when everyone gets off, we're happy, we're talking, we're camaraderie. It's not like everybody's just like, if we just lost game 7 of the finals and we're just every time we get off. You know what I mean? That doesn't help us, and growing this scene is going to be something that I think not just you, I think all of us together are going to be able to we're going to be able to benefit from it in the long run. You know what I mean? We're planting seeds for the future.
Definitely. And that, I mean, I agree with you entirely in these points. It's the movement forward of, if we can make Miami a consistent scene, change the perspective of bigger name comedians to come down here and want to stay down here. That's a big movement. I think that's the next step forward in the evolution of the comedy scene here. it bums me out that there are on the internet, on social media, there are literally compilation clips of famous comedians saying how horrible Miami is.
Oh, yeah.
There's tons of it. And I think it's that they haven't experienced the crowds that we have now. That it is curated to some aspect, but I think it's also that Miami had like this stereotype. It had this like thought process that we were like a purely Latin culture. Only Latin comedians are going to work down here. But no, we have, again, some of the best comedians down here going that I've seen go up against, and we have, again, snowbird New York comedians that come in every once in a while. They go up against our guys, and I feel like our guys are kind of winning the game right now. In fact, to the point that many of our comedians now have left Miami and went to go pursue their comedy career in New York. And are killing it right now, are just moving ahead of other comedians from other states and New York State like comedians, which is a big deal. It shows that the talent pool is rich here and that it's gonna move forward and it's gonna proliferate.
I think one of the ways that I like to describe it to most people, if in terms of a sports analogy, doing comedy down here is kind of like when you're swinging the bat with the donut on it. When you're swinging the baseball bat, when you have weight on it, or for anybody else, it's like whenever you carry like a heavy set of boxes and then you lift those boxes off and it feels like your hands are just weightless, or when you take that weight off the bat, you start swinging the bat and it's like, oh wow, this feels like a toothpick after that. It's the same thing in terms of performing down here in Miami because the crowds are so tough that if you're making people laugh down here, you can make them laugh anywhere. If you can get the attention down here, you can get the attention anywhere. So I can absolutely see how if you get, I mean, I've done shows in like Ohio and I've gone out and I've done other comedy elsewhere, and people genuinely, if they're going out to a bar show, they're going to see the show. Here in Miami, if you're going out to a bar show, you're going to the bar.
You're competing against the beach, number one. You're competing against beach. Right. You're competing against the nightlife of Miami in general. You're competing against just hot people in general. You know how great it is to be in Miami and just look at hot people? They'll do like, not like that, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But yeah, no, I get you. It's distracting. The distractions are everywhere. And I think that comedy in itself, if it's done right down here, it's such a good, it lends itself to that energy because if you are a good comic and you can quorum a crowd and you can kind of like wrangle them in and be like, hey, you guys doing this, you guys making fun of this person here and that person there, you're keeping everyone's attention. And there's so many quirky characters in Miami that you're always going to have material to work with. It's just difficult. It's just so hard, you know?
It's definitely going to sharpen that edge. It's going to sharpen that knife. I feel like as a comedian, Miami should just be listening to Eric Spoelstra post conferences, and just listen to like you got to hold the rope, you got to make sure
you don't let go of the rope,
keep chopping the wood. You got to like that's in my mind. That's always kind of going on in the background. And winning over an audience in Miami. And again, I've performed in California. I performed in Orlando recently. I haven't like traveled too far out, but performing in Miami and winning over the crowd in Miami is such a, man, it's an addicting feeling. Mm-hmm. It's an addictive feeling. I remember one time, and not to gloat, but I had a great set in a full packed house in Thank You Miami recently. And seeing, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, when you kill or like when you have like a great set and comedians are running in from the outside to see like what the hell's going on, what jokes are getting hit. And I remember seeing like 3 comedians I look up to in our scene just run in, be like, do that movement. I was like, that made my night. Like, seeing that run in from those comedians, like, yes. And it was, again, if you are a person that wants to try your hand at comedy, try. This is the time right now. Just don't go up there. The big things I always recommend to all comedians. One, don't go up with anger. That's the biggest, number one thing. I think a lot of people think that you need to be like antagonistic or you need to like fight the crowd.
Yeah, you're not Sam Kinison.
You're not Sam Kinison. And also, even though Sam Kinison is yelling, he's not yelling to like antagonize the crowd. He's not yelling to hurt them.
Right.
He's yelling to accentuate this character he's creating. So don't go up with anger, number one. Number two is you got to be confident. You got to find whatever makes your inner confidence in you and bring it out of you. If it's like you imagine yourself being a Miami Heat player, if it's you imagine yourself at like your avatar self, do it. Then this is the third thing. I learned this recently, really recently, is you got to have fun. You have to have fun. You can't go up and be regimented up there because the audience, I know it sounds stupid, but the audience smells when it's manufactured, when it's like worked out material. So having fun and engaging the audience is such a big part. And I've seen it. I've seen not only myself, but I've seen it in other comedians.
Yeah.
You know. But.
Well, I think that whenever you're getting started out in comedy, I think the number one thing that I tell people is to find your voice. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like an amalgamation of all the three things that you just said, where once you do find how you speak naturally, once you're doing that on stage and you're not like, this is how about the weather today, guys? Yeah. And you're doing like, when you do that inflection and everything, it's like I compare it similarly to like, you know, when you listen to an AI voice, where it's like you go like, wow, that sounds really similar. Like you could tell that it sounds like a human voice, but there's still something that's just it doesn't catch your ear
like
properly.
An uncanny valley of noise.
Right. Or like when there's animatronics, even if they're really, really well made animatronics, there's something about them that's not like human. And when you're on stage trying to portray a character that you're not, and you're trying to do material that you're not, the audiences are going to eat that up. And especially here in Miami. Like here in Miami, they don't care. Like they're rude. Where in other places, they'll be silent. Like they just won't laugh, or they'll just like give you disingenuous laughter. Here in Miami, they'll be actively rude and insult you. You know,
it's part of the dance we all do. You know, and I love it. Man, these chairs are so nice and soft.
They're very comfortable.
They are so comfortable.
Yeah, you could really
Can
sit
I take
here.
this home with me, guys? Is that okay? Can I take this one?
So I wanted to ask you about Dade County comedy. When you're looking at venues that you want to do shows at, what are some of the things that you look at? Like are you trying to be picky at this point, or are you just taking anybody?
So I used to take on all comers. I used to be a person that was like, any room will do, and I'll figure out how to work around it, manipulate the room in a way to make it presentable. That I've gone away from, because now, thankfully, because of the growth of the company has had and the growth that Miami's had, I'm able to be a little more selective. What I will say, and this is for anyone who's aspiring to start a comedy show or start a comedy room, number one with a bullet, much like real estate, location, location, location.
For sure.
You always want to find a place that has some foot traffic, at least some foot traffic. It's very hard. You can have the most beautiful layout. You can have Comedy Mothership, okay, or like the Comedy Store,
right, which is Joe Rogan's club in Austin. Yeah,
or like the ideal comedy room in a real rough
but if it's
location,
in Spokane, Washington,
exactly,
you're not going to be filling it out.
It's not going to fill up. So I would rather sacrifice having an ideal room for the ideal location.
Okay, that's
number one. Number two is having owners that are great owners of great venues. Some people I like to, if I can shout out.
Go ahead, bro.
Name drop,
of course.
Name drop alert. All right.
Shout out some of those companies.
Okay. Number one, Prison Pals Exit One, Breezy, and their whole group. They also run Prison Pals Doral. They literally gave me my first start. I cannot thank them enough. I was like freaking out, like scared comedian, asking like, hey, can I do a show at your place of business? And they're like, yeah, go ahead. And they actually sat with me through my biggest growing pains, like finding out how to use the right stereo equipment, figuring out which microphones work, which type of microphones work for which type of venues, where to best set up, like outside or inside, stuff like that. So they sat me through a lot of my growing pains, and they were, I can't thank them enough. The other venues, I mean, I love this venue so much. Hybrid House in West Kendall with Marta and Ricky. I got another group of venue. You really need to find owners that are willing to sit through some growing pains, so that you can see again the fruits of the labor. And then of course Alex with Thank You Miami. That's not even my room, but that room is a beautiful room. Alex is a great owner. I can't thank that guy enough for what he's done. And again, I don't care competitive wise. I just want to see the growth. I want to see that we're moving forward as a group, as a community. So those are a few of the venues I recommend. Lastly, you got, it's more about yourself at that point, man. After you find the venue, after you have a good ownership group, it's really more about your communication skills with your comedians, conveying what you were looking for, building a show not to your image or not to your liking, but towards your audience. I think that's something a lot of comedians don't put in their toolbox. You need to come always with the perspective of your audience. You know, some of us go up on stage and we want to, and don't get me wrong, speaking on our personal events and personal feelings, do create great material, great bits that eventually lead us to further growth. But also just remember that there's someone on the other side of this glass that when we're stepping onto the stage. So that's something I would take into consideration if you're ever trying to start a comedy show.
For sure. And I think for a lot of people down here in South Florida too, comedy is a newer venture. You know what I mean? Like we had the Grove Improv there for a while, and I think for most people who have been in Miami for 20 plus years, I think that's when they think of comedy. Like I work at the Miami Improv, and I still get calls and people are like, "You guys are located in the Grove, right?" And I'm like, "No, man, we haven't been in the Grove for over a decade." I'm sorry. But it's true, you know. I think still a lot of people have that idea of that being comedy in Miami. Tuesday nights at the Grove, Urban Night at the Grove, like all those different things. And once that kind of left, once that moved, and comedians, like you said, comedians started talking about Miami in this weird light, and it kind of became where if you're coming here, you're doing the arena and you're doing the Hollywood, you're doing the Hard Rock in Hollywood, and you're doing something like that. Now that we have you guys and we have the Improv itself, which has been putting on smaller comedians and been giving shows to smaller comedians now too.
Shout out to Miami Improv. That's a big change I've seen in recent years, that younger up and coming people are getting chances to do headline spots, and like I can't even thank you guys enough, because again, you're giving voice to this crew of true talent that just needs to get that spotlight.
And I think that's one thing that I think a lot of people in the comedy scene, and I heard Joe Rogan say this once about how in the 90s there was this like famine mentality where it was like there's only a certain amount of spots and there's only a certain amount of sitcoms you can get, and there's only a certain amount of movies that we can all be in, and we're all competing for the same stuff, and there's this mentality of that where everyone's competing for the same food, and there's a famine, right? Where it should be the other side of the spectrum. It should be a feast mentality where it's like, hey, there's more than enough to go around. Let's all help each other out. Let's all build each other up, because we can all eat once we're at the top.
1,000%. 1,000. I know that, and don't get me wrong, I know that like blades sharpen, I forget, it was metal.
Iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron. I understand that mentality. I understand that competitive nature does play a part into comedy, but we are ultimately a community. Ultimately, basketball players know other basketball players. Professional wrestlers know other professional wrestlers, and then work with each other. The same thing goes with comedy in my mind, is that yes, there some of us that we don't enjoy working with. 1,000%.
That's everyone's job.
But it's everyone's job. And it's really, again, about the more we support each other, the more we create a strong foundation with each other, the better. The sky's the limit. In my mind. And I just see that, I see the path. I sound like
Sound like an old man.
Cringy I sound later on in the comments. Please let me know how cringy and like self-deprecating I sound right now. But I see the path. I see the vision of where Miami can be. I really do, and I get very excited about it. The future is bright in my mind.
Hey man, I completely agree with you. And honestly, if we just keep doing the things that we're doing, the things that you keep on keeping on with Dade County Comedy, and I know that it's only going to grow from here on out. I mean, I know you. What are some of the big shows you guys got coming up? Why don't you shout out some of the shows, locations, dates?
So, number one with a bullet. Very excited. We just announced this actually. I mean, I don't know when it's coming out. Recently, June 30th, July 1st. Dade County Comedy has 2 shows at SuperCon, Florida SuperCon. That is super.
SuperCon nerds come out.
They come out. Let me tell you, the last SuperCon show we had was 350 people in a packed room, and they were so happy with us. They gave us 2 shows. That's bananas to me. So that's one I always keep posted. We always recommend coming to Hybrid House in Kendall. What day is that? It's on the 3rd Thursday of the month.
Okay.
I want to pull out my phone right now, but 3rd Thursday of the month, 8 p.m. sharp. Get there quick because not only does parking get limited, space in that room is limited. Lost City Brewery, which is also the 3rd Saturday of the month on 8 p.m. And then just follow us at Dade County Comedy. We post all of our shows. We do bingo sometimes.
Yes, definitely. Definitely please go follow them. Follow Raul Hernandez. Follow Dade County Comedy and all the other comics that you see on there. Give them a follow because that's how you guys stay connected with us. We don't have marketing teams. We have Instagrams and social medias and different things like that. So if we have a show that's coming up, we're going to put it up on there. I have a show coming up also at the Miami Improv, as you can see behind us, on June 13th. It's my birthday bash. So I'm inviting all of you guys to my birthday. So you should feel a little bit grateful, and I'm going to be sad if you don't come to my birthday party that I invited you to. So come out, get some tickets on MiamiImprov.com. Do you guys ever do events with ticketed sales other than SuperCon, I would assume?
Not really at this point, at this moment of adventure.
So you're saying it's free?
It's free, yes.
Bro, so you're saying that you guys can go see any of his shows for free?
You can see people that literally have been on TV doing comedy at Miami Dade County Comedy Show.
That's true.
For free, yes.
Man,
that might not last long, but just letting you know, it might not last long.
Raul, it's been an absolute pleasure. I thank you so much, not only for what you do in South Florida comedy and for us here, but also for just the guy that you are. You're one of the nicest people on the scene. I always love it when you come through. You got that big teddy bear energy, and I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah. Hey, can I give a quick compliment, Sebastian? I've really enjoyed seeing you grow the past year, bro.
Thank you.
And it's not just through Thank You Miami and Taurus and other places. You've grown. You're hosting the mics at Miami Improv. You've done a lot of great stuff, bro. And I can't wait to see again your journey, man.
Thank you.
No worries, bro.
Guys, with that, we're gonna leave you with the conclusion of our show. Raul gave an absolute perfect explanation as to not only why you should get started in comedy if you do want to get started in comedy down here in South Florida, but also where you can get started in comedy, and it's going to be at Dade County Comedy. Hit them up if you want to start doing shows, or if you have a business and you want to have your one of your Friday nights or one of your Saturday nights or one of your lower business nights, have it, pick up a little extra people. Even if it's only comics that come, we drink and we eat because we're degenerates. So please hit up Raul, hit up Dade County Comedy. Thank you guys so much. This has been Sebi.